Hello, this is Karia again, and I have another video for you today. Today, I will be doing at last my review of the Derwent Procolour pencils. If you follow me on Instagram or if you are a patron over on Patreon, you've already seen a little bit of a preview of this, but I wanted to do a full review of the Derwent Procolour. Now, the folks at Derwent did send me this for review, which was really awesome because these are new pencils and they are a little bit more on the pricey side since they're new, and I'm hoping that the price will go down a little bit. So I really appreciate them sending me out this for review. So let's get started. So those of you who are new, this is ColoringKaria. I do adult coloring and colored pencil reviews, and what I do is I talk about the pencils in general. And then after I've talked about them in general a little bit, then we're going to swatch them, and then after we swatch them, I'm going to show you some sample pieces that I've made, although I'll preview some of the sample pieces and I'll go more in detail about the sample pieces that I made. And then at the very end, I will do a comparison with a lot of other brands, basically all the other brands that I have these little swatch cards for. So we will be comparing them to a whole bunch of other brands towards the end of the video. But anyway, let me show you really quickly, and I'll go into this more detail later on in the video, but I wanted to show you this that I made. This is a page from Lynn. It's her pocket coloring book, and I did this with just the colors in the Procolour set. And this is another little piece that I made, and again I'll go over this more in detail later on in the video. So these are the colors that came in this set. So the folks at Derwent sent me a set of 36 Derwent Procolour pencils. So these were newly released this year in 2017, which is a big deal. It's not very often that an entirely new line appears. So this is super exciting that they have a new line of colored pencils. As for whether or not they are wax or oil, it is uncertain. I cannot find anything official to tell me if they are wax or oil based. This is what they say, exactly what they say in the Derwent website. The Derwent Procolour pencils are the perfect combination of a strong point and a smooth laydown with a texture that has the covering power of wax, yet glide like an oil pencil. So that doesn't exactly say which one it is. A lot of people have said that they're both or that they're one or the other. To me, they feel like a harder wax-based pencil. Look, there's, none of these companies give you their formulation. And so, based on some how it's made videos or so on, I've always believed that that most companies use a little bit of both, kind of like when you're making, when you're making candy, sometimes you'll add a little bit of salt for flavor and stuff like that. So I always felt that they used a little bit of both. But anyway, I know for some people this is really important. Anyway, so I don't want to go on too long about this, but the final thing is I don't know for sure. My guess is that these are mostly wax-based pencils with maybe some oil for specific effects. But that's only a guess, and that's not, 100% certain. That's just based on their website and what they say, and based on the information that they have available. So that's that. Hopefully we can set that to rest early on. And these come in a number of sets. They do come open stock, which is very important because these are relatively pricey. They may shift over time. So what I'm going to do, normally I give you what the prices are in the video. I'm not going to do that because the prices change so much. And since these are so new, I feel like the prices are going to shift a lot. So I will give you the pricing information down in the description below. But they do come in sets of 12, 24, 36, which is what this set is, and a 72 set, as well as showing up open stock. So the next thing I want to do is I want to talk to you about the pencils themselves. One of the things that I found with some of the other Derwent pencils, especially the Inktense, is that when you unwrap the packaging, there's like a little bit of a smell from the paint or from something. And these don't have that. These have a very different sort of finish. It's a very soft matte finish that is really very nice to hold. And when you first hold these is just a really very, very nice thing to hold. So so these feel wonderful to hold in your hand, like so that's a really, really good plus. Let me see what else. I believe they should be bonded to the wood, although I did have, I think it was this color, but I ended up using them so much that I can't tell which color. I did have a color where a little bit chipped off. It didn't cause the whole barrel to break. That could have happened in shipment or in anything, but I did want to say that I did have one of these where a little bit of the point chipped off and I had to sharpen it a little bit down. But once you get, you know, but that only happened once. So hopefully that was a one-timer, and it won't be something that I saw repeated at all in all the coloring that I did. Let's see. Oh, let me show you what the pencil looks like, because I found it interesting. They do print the name, they print the name and number of the pencils. Now, these pencils are supposed to be artist grade, so they are listed as various degrees of light fastness, with I think about half of them having a higher light fast rating, and half of them not being the best light fast rating. But one thing that I did not like and I did not expect from a sort of higher end pencil, especially the price of these at the time of release, is that they do not have the light fastness rating printed on the pencil. My guess is that they are hoping to improve the light fastness rating of the other pencils over time, but that's for a future date, and that's for like a future kind of, it's like a future problem. So I would have appreciated them if they want to be, you know, if they want to be competitive with the Polychromos and the Luminance, that they print the light fastness rating right on the pencil itself. I'm not sure when they can change that, but that's really, to me, that's something really important. The other thing, and this is a situation across pretty much across, like, I want to say all the Derwent lines, is that the color is only at the very bottom. And sometimes the colors are not, they aren't the best match, and sometimes they look way more similar than they do when you actually use them. So like these two look exactly the same here. Let me show you. These two look exactly the same here, but then when you put in the colors, they do look a little bit different. They do look, oh, hold on, it's this way. They do look more different than they show here. It's kind of similar, but it's not, this isn't as dark as you see here. The cedar one is a really good match, but the sap green is not as dark as it is here. It's also not as brown as it shows here, as it shows on the pencil core. So that's an issue, and I've noticed that across pretty much many of the Derwent lines, that a lot of times the colors are not, they're not that well matched. So these also continue that tradition of being not that well matched. Anyway, so there's that. The next thing is that they do show you the number so you can reorder them. The other thing is these are made in Britain, which is always nice, especially for pencils that that want to be artist grade pencils to use for professional artists, or, you know, advanced colorists, or just anybody, that they are made in Britain, and that's always nice to see. So there's that. All right, so I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to do some swatching, and then after I do some swatching, I'm going to come back and talk about more of my experience using them and some of the things that I found about using them, and I will be right back. Okay, so for this part of the video, I will be doing the swatching. So I have picked up the colors that come in the set of 12 according to my research, and then I will set these aside. I have a clean sheet of paper here, so let's get ready to swatch them. So so here they are. This is, so you can see that there's a very strong color laydown, but it does have that that hard lead that we talked about, so it does hold a point for a good long time, actually. And this is the Buttercup Yellow. Buttercup, of course, being the bakery that Victoria liked in How I Met Your Mother, who Victoria totally should have been the mother if you watch that show. And this is the Deep Chrome, which is like an orangey color. And then this is the Primary Red. So you can see that it's really smooth laid down, like it feels smooth. It's not like, you know, it's not like, it's smooth. It's still a hard lead, but it's very smooth lay down. So that's one of the things that I do like about these pencils, is really nice smooth lay down. So this next color is Charisse Pink, I think is how you pronounce that. People will correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, I'm sure. All right, so you can see this, and you can see that there's very high pigment load. You see, even when I go really lightly, there's a lot of color that comes on there. If you press a little harder, you can get more color. So there's that, as you can see from that. Then the next color is Imperial Purple. This is the next color, and once again you see that high pigment load. And one thing about these pencils is that these pencils, more than some of the other ones that I've tried, really depends on the paper. This is a paper with a fair amount of, like a medium amount of tooth, so it's very easy to get the pigment on. But for some papers, because these are a harder lead, for some papers it is a little bit more difficult, and you do have to press a little harder to get more pigmentation. You can see what a light pressure feels like and a medium pressure, but you can also layer quite nicely. So you can see, so you can go over all these layers. So this blue is the Persian blue, and the next color over, this is the Spectrum Blue. Now this color, I think this color appears in the Inktense. I think some of these are unique colors and some of these appear in other lines, but don't quote me on that, because the only ones of the Derwents that I have tried is the Inktense and the and this one and the Procolour. So don't quote me on that. All right, this is the sap green. Now this is the sap green. You can see the sap green here. And the next one over is the one after this is the, I think this is a grass green. This is grass green is the next one. This is a very, it's a very like light green. It's a very vibrant green. And now we are going over to, these also feel really good in the hand. I noticed that right away when I first got these. Some of the other Derwent lines have when you unwrap them from the packaging, they have a little bit of an odor, and I think that that's from the paint used on the barrel, but these did not have that, and they had a very they have a very nice soft feel to it in the barrel. The barrel has a very soft feel to it. So it is comfortable to hold. So then the next color, this color is the brown ochre. Which reminds me more of a raw, like a raw kind of a color more than a burnt color, but you know, I could be wrong. And then the last color that comes in the set of 12 is the Ivory Black. And that was one thing that I will talk about when I show you some of my finished pieces. But the black that I found was very gray sort of black. It was not as black as I like for my blacks to be. So that was kind of a little bit of an issue for me. But you can see that the black is not that dark. So there's that. All right, so I'm gonna pause and then go to the finished pieces and then with the comparison. Okay, so I am back, but I did realize that one thing I didn't talk about is the tin that these came in. And I realize that it's gonna annoy some people that I don't go over the prices as much as I normally do. But just to give you an example, like when I looked at the price for the set of 36 a week ago when I was doing a research for this episode, Amazon had them listed for $84, and now Amazon has us listed for $70 for the price of 36. So it's very, it moves around a lot. So since these are new, the prices really move around a lot. So I will put that that information in the description. But anyway, one thing I didn't talk about is the tin that these come in. The tin itself is pretty sturdy, and this works really well for the set. But for the this is probably going to be an issue more for the people who get the set of 72. The actual tray, it's a very flimsy sort of tray, and it looks like they pretty much just use the same ones that they've been using for the Inktense, but I really would have preferred if they upgraded this actual tray. This is super flimsy, and if it's anything like the Inktense tray, and it looks to be exactly the same as the one used for the Inktense, this is not going to last, and this is going to need to be replaced into something a little bit more sturdy, which I never like to see, because I'm one of the few people who likes to keep things in the tins that they come in, since they tend to have such valuable information. Oh, well, by the way, I didn't really go over the information. This one just tells you a little bit about the company. There's a picture in the front that I was pleasantly surprised to see was actually made with these pencils, so you can see the color range that you can get with these pencils. And the colors that are included are here, but the colors that are included are not in the back, which I always like to see the colors in the back, but that's okay. It's a minor issue. The outside tin itself is pretty sturdy, and it snaps on and off, and I think it should be okay for, you know, short distances or whatever. I took these to Starbucks and it was fine, but this the interior tray should have been a little bit sturdier. Anyway, that's a minor point. I didn't talk about that, but I wanted to talk about that as a very minor issue. All right, so let me show you. So now the section of the video, so now you guys have seen the swatch, and so before we get to the comparison, I just want to go over a little bit of some of the things that I made with these pencils, and it's going to be a few things that I made. Now, normally what I do when I do a review is I will have a coloring page and then one sketch, but because these pencils are so new, I did do multiple sketches. This is done on a Stonehenge craft paper, which I will be doing a review of the Stonehenge paper pack in the coming weeks, but this is from that craft paper, which is 100% cotton paper, and this is an artist grade paper. And I just did this sketch from memory from when I was on vacation, and we just got, you know, the hotel had afternoon tea, so I just did this from memory from the hotel. I'm not really an artist, and I'm not really that familiar with drawing on non-white paper, so it's something that I'm very new to, but I just wanted to give this a shot to see how these pencils work out. They're definitely not the most opaque pencils I have tried, but they did work out pretty good on this paper. The most opaque pencils that I have tried on non-white paper have been the Caran d'Ache Luminance, but these are these are really good for I don't think that they would be as good as the Caran d'Ache Luminance, but they are really good for what they are, as a harder pencil, where I did this whole thing and I didn't have to sharpen it at all. So that's really nice. One thing though is that for dark coloring, a lot of times you're not really sure what the paper is going to be. So what I suggest with these, if you like these pencils, and these are really good pencils, is to try them on different papers, because I'm about to show you something and you're going to be really surprised. I'm going to show you. This is a different paper than I use for swatching. This is still Strathmore. This is still drawing, but this is their recycled drawing paper. And I want to show you something just really quickly to show you the difference on this paper. This was done with the Faber-Castell Polychromos, as were these two were also done with the Faber-Castell Polychromos. Now, if we move over and we see with this one, it doesn't have... I tried to do it pretty much the same number of layers. In fact, I think I may have used more layers with these. It still doesn't have the vibrancy and the darkness that I got from the Polychromos, and that has to do with the fact that these are a harder lead, and so this paper is smoother than the other paper we swatched on, so it's a little bit harder to get as much pigmentation out as you would with a softer pencil. You can see it here with this is also these are swatches that I made with this is the Derwent Procolours. I'm sorry, this is the Derwent Procolour, and you can see how they compare to the Polychromos. The Polychromos are more vibrant, but I don't think that they have they might have a very similar pigment load. This doesn't feel like the difference in the pigment load is that extreme, but it's just the fact that these are harder pencil, and this is a like a paper with a little bit less tooth, so it doesn't show as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind with these pencils if you're going to use them for coloring or for pretty much anything, is to get like a couple open stock and then see how they go on the paper that you're planning on using them, to make sure that you can get as much pigment load as you really need to. Because another comparison, hold on, let me show you something else too. I want to show you this too. I'm sorry, this is also about the pigment loads in the paper. Sorry about that, as I just realized that I wanted to do that. Another comparison is, I just want to show you this right here. This is the Imperial Purple, and I just want to show you this right here. You can see how much darker this is and how much more pigmented this is, but I probably pressed harder and went longer on this one than I did on this one. Same thing here with the two pinks, is that this paper is a more toothy paper. This is a cold press. This is a B cold press paper. And this is a Strathmore hot press paper. So the hot press paper is a little bit smoother. And you can see the difference even in the Buttercup. You can see the difference here. Actually across all three of these, and you can see how it changes a lot because of the hardness of the pencil on some of these other ones. So I would definitely say that if you want to get these, you should feel comfortable getting them, but you should also look at them with the specific paper that you want to use. You can see how this black is still like a charcoal, but you can see that this is a much more gray charcoal, and this is a much more black charcoal. It's not really neither one of them is really a black, but this is the one that's closer to a black because it's a more toothy paper. So that's another issue. The other thing you can do is you can just press harder, or you can use a solvent, or there's other ways to get around the fact that with a less toothy paper, you might not get as much of the pigment drop off. So, okay, so in my opinion, I don't know if I said that these are a hard lead pencils, and these are probably, out of all the artist grade pencils, these are probably the hardest of the artist grade pencils. They're still smooth and they still lay down really nicely, but they are a hard lead. So that's something to keep in mind. And I just want to show you this. For the most part, this is pretty similar to what I've done with some of the other ones. I did have a little bit of a struggle with the skin when I first got it, to try to figure out how to get the layers the way that I wanted. But one thing you'll see is, I want to show you the night sky. The night sky has 3 layers of black, 1 layer of purple, another layer of black, and then a layer of blue on top. And you can see that it's not particularly black. It doesn't look particularly. Once we get in close, you can see the layers of blue and you can see the layers of purple, but the black looks like a dark gray. And that was the case throughout this whole piece, that I could not get, because this is a very, very inexpensive paper. This is, this is a creative space paper from this coloring book. It wasn't giving me the color vibrancy that I was expecting, just because this is a not the highest tooth paper there is. So with these pencils, you really see that. So I wanted to talk about that. But overall, it was fun to do. The result is really nice. It's not my favorite, but that has more to do with me and with me getting used to the pencils than with the pencils themselves. I don't know. I wasn't happy with the skin. If I had a choice, I probably would do another page and then just scrap this one. But I didn't feel like delaying the review any longer than it had already been delayed. So that's why but I'm not that happy with the skin. I'm happy with about everything else except maybe the sky. I wanted the sky to be a really dark black, but I just could not get that here. And I think that would be resolved with either A, pressing harder, or B, using a solvent to dissolve the black and then just keep going in. But I didn't feel like doing either, just to give it the same sense, the same way that I do all the other ones. So anyway, so that was that. But you can still see that it looks really well. There's a really good contrast. Again, the darks are not as dark as I want them to be, but that's more, you know, a choice that I made not to press super hard on the paper and not to use a solvent. That's more of a personal choice, but that's something to keep in mind if you color like me, where you don't really, you know, where you don't really press too hard and you don't really use a lot of solvents. Then, you know, this is an issue that you might want to, like I said, these pencils, more than most of the other artist grade pencils, really depend on the paper, how much pigment you get, and how smooth the paper is. If the paper is too smooth, you're not going to get as much per stroke, just because it's the harder pencil. But anyway, we've covered that before, and I don't want to keep repeating myself. So so there's that. So that's it. So now we're gonna go into the comparison with the other brands. But I really enjoyed these. I found that they layered really nicely. You can see here that they layered really nicely. I could have kept putting in more layers, but I was pretty much at that point I was pretty happy with what I did. Let me show you, in case people ask down in the comments, this is the ink that I used for the ink. Just, you know, just so you can see that this is the Winsor Newton gold ink, is what I used, and that's the one I got from Laura. All right, so there's that. All right, so next thing is going to be the comparison, and then at the end of the comparison, just final thoughts. All right, so now is the comparison part, and when I do this comparison, I pretty much compare it to basically all the other previous brands that I have reviewed, and we start with the Crayola and we work our way over to the Luminance. So as always, it definitely performs much better than the Crayola. You can see the difference with the Crayola. You can see some of the fading in the lower level, and you can see some of the fading on the Crayola. So overall, obviously these do perform better than the Crayola. The next up is the Staedtler Ergo Soft, which were also a hard pencil, by the way. Was it the Ergo Soft or was it the other one? Yeah, these were the ones that were a hard pencil. It was the outside of it that was a soft. But anyway, so this is that. And the Staedtler Ergo Soft, when you pressed really hard, they did give you a nice pigment lay down, but it was pressing too hard for my liking. And the Crayola Twistables, now this is what the Crayola looked like originally when I did the other one, and you can see it definitely beats the Crayola. The Tombow Erogatin. I mean, the main thing about the Tombow Erogatin is those vibrant fluorescent colors. But otherwise, this is definitely a higher pigment load than the Erogatin. This is the Blackwing colors, which I was surprised by, and they did perform really well, but they only come in these colors. They only come in a set of, I think it was 12 colors is all it comes in. So there's that. But they did perform really well for what it was. So that, all right, next up is the Lyra Polycolors. There's so many companies with colored pencil brands named Polycolor that it's hard to keep up with. The Lyra Polycolor were the soft ones, Rembrandt they were called, and you can see here they did really well, but the reds did fade surprisingly more quickly than I would have liked. But reds tend to be a fugitive color. But you can see the comparison. They definitely, the Derwent Procolours definitely are more vibrant than the Lyra Polycolor. And next up is the Derwent, it's not Derwent, I'm sorry, the Koh-i-Noor Polycolor, another Polycolor one, and the Blick Artist, which are basically pretty much the same pencil. If they're not identical pencils, they're near enough as makes no difference, and you can see both of them. You know, the Koh-i-Noor Polycolor and the Dick Blick Artist are a really good substitute for artist grade pencils if you want to save some money and you don't want to necessarily spend the big bucks. They're a really good, surprisingly good substitute. So they do really well, but you can see that even the Derwent Polycolors do have a stronger pigmentation level here. Next up is the Prismacolor. Now the Prismacolor are extremely soft pencils, and so these are, because they are a harder pencil, it's easier for them to get in there on their own. So that's where these would stand out, and these hold a point much more than, obviously much more than the than the Prismacolor soft core pencils held a point. They definitely are extremely soft pencils, but these are much harder. So there's that. There's the Caran Pablos, which is similar in the sense that they're both sort of, it's a little bit, you know, there's different opinions as to what the core is on the Pablos as well. But you can see that the Pablo is also harder pencil, so it also gets into more of that tooth of the paper. There's very similar vibrancy here between these two. It's quite surprisingly similar in terms of the vibrancy. Between these two, I would say that probably the Derwent Procolour is the harder pencil of the two. The Pablos, I didn't see had a particularly high light fast rating throughout, so there's that. So in that sense, I'm not quite sure which of these two, if you had to choose which of these two I would recommend, since they're pretty different in form. All right, so then we get to the big two, I guess, the big boys. All right, so this is the Faber Castell Polychromos versus the Derwent Procolour. And the Derwent Procolour, there's definitely, you can see here again that the Derwent Procolour is again a little bit harder. So again, it's a little bit easier to get into the tooth of that paper. So you do see a little bit less white here in the Derwent Procolour than you do in the Faber Castell Polychromos. But in terms of the vibrancy, I think the vibrancy is pretty similar. If anything, I might say that the Polychromos are a little bit more vibrancy that you see here in the swatches. You know, that could be attributed to any number of things, but this definitely looks more vibrant here in this little sample test. It could, you know, it could be the hardness of the pencil or whatever, but just here you do see more vibrancy in this one. And then this is the last one. Now these two, this is the Luminance, which are super opaque but also super soft. And very high pigment load, much higher light fast rating. So there's that. In terms of the light fast ratings, the Luminance do have a much higher light fast rating. So if I had to place these in terms of where they will go in the end, is I just put them in, you know, in terms of, I guess, where I think they fit. If, you know, these things aren't really in a continuum because, you know, different people want different things. But if we had to temporarily pick a continuum, I probably would put these between the Polychromos and the Pablos, mostly because the price on these is a little bit high, and I don't think that they give you as much value for your dollars as the Faber Castell Polychromos at this point. That could change in the future. Also, I feel like the vibrancy here, the Polychromos are able to produce more vibrancy in more kinds of paper because it's a little bit of a softer pencil. And then, so that's the reason why I would say, you know, I would probably say, you know, if you're thinking, these two would probably be the hardest ones to choose from. They are really different, so there's that. But anyway, that's sort of the comparison. It's a little bit weird because these are new and I haven't had as much time to play with these as some of the other ones. But this is around about where I would place them in terms of the continuum. So I'm going to pause for a minute and then come back with my final thoughts. All right, so in the end, my final thoughts on these are, you know, the pluses are the vibrancy of the color. There's very high pigment load. One of the main negatives is that it varies. How much of that you actually get onto the paper varies on the tooth of the paper much more than I've seen with other pencils. I have not tried the Derwent Color Soft, so I can't compare these to the Color Soft or the Derwent Artist. I can only compare this to some of the other artist brands that I've tried. So that's kind of a little, you know, it's not necessarily the fault of the pencils. That's just on me. But overall, I found these to be really good pencils. I love the coating. The coating was very nice coating. I feel like these pencils would be best for people who do things with a lot of detail, where you want to keep that point super sharp for a long time. So if you're going to be doing a lot of highly detailed work, these would be a great pencil. And you can take the light fast colors and use them to substitute your your Polychromos or your Luminance colored pencils, the ones with the light fast ratings that you like. But the flip side is you have to look that light fast rating up, because they're not printed on the actual pencil. Because they are so hard, if you want to use these for adult coloring, then you're going to have to, no matter what, I suggest that you get a couple and see how you feel, because I found them to be, harder than the Polychromos, but other people found them to be softer than the Polychromos. So, so that's going to be very depending on who you are and how you press. So there's that. So either way, I suggest that you get a couple of these and try them out before you get the whole set. But if you like a couple of these, then you're just gonna love the set. One of the shortfalls, the shortcomings here, is not necessarily the fault of the pencils, but just the way the market works is that right now they're more expensive probably than they will be in the future, when you may be watching these videos when the price has come down a little bit. And I feel like this would be, I would recommend these more if the price was a little lower than the current prices. The current prices are a little high, mainly because these are new. But once the prices come down a little bit, then these are definitely going to be a much better value, especially since you can use these. They have a lot of these brown tones, which I found that some of the other Derwent sets were lacking, that you can use for African American skin tones as well as for your nature work. And so these would be really good for your nature works and for your portraits and so on. So overall, I like these pencils. I really enjoyed them. They're best for doing details, and they work really well in some kinds of books, less so in others because of the nature of the pencil. But overall, these are good pencils. If you're interested in them, definitely give them a try. Definitely get a couple open stock, see how you like them before you jump in and get the full set. And I think that's it. So if you guys have any questions, let me know down in the comments. I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much for staying with me. Definitely want to thank the folks at Derwent for sending me these out for review. And I will see you guys next time. Oh, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you like this video. And I will see you guys next time. Bye. Oops, I forgot to mention my birthday is on September 16th, and I will be doing a giveaway of a coloring book and an Amazon gift card on September 16th. So don't forget to subscribe and share for that, because the more people we get signed up, the bigger the giveaway. All right, I will see you guys next time. Bye. Stewie. What's up, Stewie? Oh, that's a good yawn. The cute buddy. Who's your sleepy buddy? Who's your sleepy buddy? Oh, who's your good buddy? Oh.